Q and Review, celebrating 40 years of audio production, welcomes you to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast, recorded from our studio in the Bishopbriggs Media Centre and by our volunteers working from home. Keep up to date with Q and Review news via our Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, or Instagram at Q and Review. That's @CUEANDREVIEW, or get in touch with us directly by emailing information@qandreview.com. That's INFORMATION @CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling us on 0141 772 3979. Please like and share our podcast and give us constructive feedback.
Evening Times Sport, May 20th. Derek McInnes's Hearts take on Tony Bloom and Shankland. Report by Blair Meikle. Derek McInnes said all the right things as he was unveiled as the Hearts manager yesterday. The 53-year-old insists he has always wanted to manage Hearts. He feels it's a good fit and would have been gutted to see someone else land the job instead of him. He also talked about how he wants to be a hard team to beat, to annoy opponents and hit them between the eyes right from the start of games. That will all be music to the ears of fans in Gorgie. One of the factors that makes working at Tynecastle right now so attractive is the link-up with Jamestown Analytics and the expected investment from Brighton owner Tony Bloom. McInnes reckons both will be a comfort to him as a manager, and he is certainly glad to have them on his side rather than in opposition. And he continued, I've looked closely at the work he has been involved in. Everyone at the club is excited about the partnership, the collaboration and the added investment. There's real evidence. USG in Belgium will likely win the league next week, and that's a great story. Brighton, everyone knows the improvement there over the last while. I think there's a lot of people out there who scoff at it and are sceptical of it because it's not the norm in Scottish football. But for me, having that expertise, knowledge and infrastructure is important because they can help me build a squad. It's up to me and my staff to build a team within that. Having them on board with us is a real comfort as a manager, and I would rather have them with me than against me. A pressing matter for the former St Johnstone, Aberdeen and Kilmarnock boss is the contract situation of Lawrence Shankland, set to become a free agent as it stands. But McInnes, who previously signed the player at Pittodrie, is desperate to try and thrash out a new deal to ensure the 29-year-old is bulging nets for him in the years to come. And he insisted, if we have got an opportunity to keep him, then we should do all we can to keep him, because he's Scottish. He gives you 20-odd goals a season. He could maybe get more than that if you give him the right service and get him closer to the goal. I do believe that working with Lawrence would be brilliant. We have got someone already there who can give us what we're looking for at the top end of the pitch. Ultimately, it did not work out for him at Aberdeen, and there is no shame in that. Sometimes it takes a player a bit longer to find his way, but he did find his way. He became a Scotland international. He goes to the Euros. He becomes a really relevant player in the Scottish Premiership, and a player that I would love to work with, because he's a boy that I'm really fond of. I know his family. I would love to continue with him. Report by Bob Meikle. Evening Times Sport, May 20. Nick Rodger on taking the rough with the smooth, which is par for the course. As the weather has been so delightful recently, I have been doing a lot of pottering about in the garden. To tell you the truth though, I wouldn't know my aster from my elbow. My occasionally misguided attempts at gardening remind me of the old Two Ronnies line about the hapless horticulturist who tried to cross-pollinate a red-hot poker with a forgot-me-not and ended up with a painful reminder. In some ways, my approach to this tranquil, therapeutic pastime mirrors the way I play golf. There's plenty of enthusiastic endeavour, but I'm still not quite sure what the hell I'm doing at times. Come to think of it, that sounds just like the way I tackle writing a column. There may not be many prize blooms in this correspondent's backyard, but at least we get to write about the best on show on golf's grandest stages. Step forward, Scotty Scheffler. Again, Major number 3 is in the bag after his latest victory in the PGA Championship at Quail Hollow. On the face of it, a 5-shot success would seem like a procession to a coronation. It was far from it, of course. A slightly ragged outward half. Scheffler hit only 4 greens in regulation on the front 9. Coupled with John Rahm's purposeful assault, certainly made things interesting as the Spaniard briefly drew level. The bold Scotty is made of stern stuff though, as Rahm wilted like one of this scribe's dehydrated fluers on the run-in. Scheffler's unyielding mental fortitude and clinical execution in the decisive moments of victory. It was another trademark triumph. In the build-up to the championship, giddy observers were rolling at the prospect of free-flowing, unburdened Rory McIlroy sweeping into his happy hunting ground at Quail Hollow, winning again after his historic Masters conquest, and teeing up an assault on the same season Grand Slam. With that nation gone for a button, we have now swiftly moved along to the idea of Scheffler joining McIlroy in a rarefied pantheon by completing the career Grand Slam. I don't focus on that kind of stuff, Scheffler said to temper the frenzy. Sensible man. From a breakthrough PGA Tour win in 2022, Scheffler has packed 15 wins into a 3-and-a-bit-year spell. In the 20 majors he has contested over the past 5 years, Scheffler has won 3 times, posted 11 other top 10s, missed only 1 cut, and finished outside the leading 20 just 3 times. He's such a hardy perennial, they could stock him at Dobby's Garden Centre. The 107th PGA Championship was a bit of a curious affair, wasn't it? After all the hype, hysteria and hoopla that was generated by McIlroy's win at Augusta in April, the second men's major of the season had a hard act to follow. There were times, particularly on the opening couple of days, when proceedings in North Carolina felt as flat as a half-slurped bottle of Prosecco that had been sitting on the kitchen worktop for a few days. Quail Hollow is an annual stop on the PGA Tour. This sense of familiarity made a major feel somewhat routine, while the course setup was largely indistinguishable from your regular tour event. I thought it was going to feel different just because it was a major championship. It felt no different, suggested McIlroy, who had won 4 times at Quail Hollow down the years, but was never in the reckoning last week. The rough is maybe a little juicier, but fairways are still the same cut lines and same visuals. McIlroy certainly was not criticising, but his observation was far from complimentary. There was plenty of criticism and cursing meanwhile, when play got going. Tyrrell Hatton grabbed some headlines for his usual bonfire of the profanities, while a seething Shane Lowry thumped a club into the turf after a chunked approach and growled, "F this place." It wasn't quite the erudite analysis of Henry Longhurst. The grumblings had been growing due to various instances of mud balls and the PGA of America's decision not to have preferred lies in operation after heavy rains saturated the course in the build-up. It even riled mild-mannered Scheffler, having blamed his double bogey on the 16th during round 1 on the effects of mud on the ball. He felt this element of chance created by a dirty dollop on a dimpled sphere was unbefitting of a major championship. Lamented Scheffler, "You spend your whole life trying to learn how to control a golf ball, and due to a rules decision, all of a sudden you have absolutely no control over where that golf ball goes. But I don't make the rules. I just have to deal with the consequences of those rules." Boo-hoo, eh? The opposing and time-honoured sentiment, of course, is that you play the ball as it lies. Golf, as Jack Nicklaus said, is not and never has been a fair game. The rub of the green, which can account for various fluctuating fortunes, and the good and bad that happens during a round, is par for the course in this fickle old pursuit of inherent imperfections. Give it a week and those muttering about the bad break of a mud ball may be quietly thanking their lucky stars when a wayward shot rattles around in the trees and bounces back into the fairway. You've got to take the rough with the smooth. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got to tend to my herbaceous border, says Nick Roger. Evening Times Sport, May 20th. Premier League defender set to return in time for World Cup qualifiers. Report by Matthew Lindsay. Steve Clarke has revealed that he is hopeful that Aaron Hickey will be available for selection for Scotland's opening World Cup qualifiers against Denmark and Belarus away in September. The Brentford player was exceptional for the national team at right wing-back during a hugely successful Euro 2024 qualifying campaign and helped his country to record wins over Cyprus, Georgia, Norway and Spain. However, the former Hearts kid has been sidelined with a severe hamstring injury, which has required 2 surgeries since the October of 2023. But Clarke, who yesterday recalled Everton defender Nathan Patterson to his squad for the friendlies against Iceland and Liechtenstein next month, is optimistic that the 22-year-old will be back in action at the start of the 25-26 campaign. Said Clarke, Nathan has had a tough time down at Everton. He had not been playing regularly and has had injury tissues. He's got back in, but he's keen, a little bit in and out. But we know he's a good player because we've had him in the squad before. He's done good things for us. We have Tony Ralston, who has never let us down, so I keep Tony in the squad. And I want to have a look at young Max Johnson, who's had a really good season at his club Sturm Graz. He's picking up experience all the time. He's played Champions League football this year, so this is a chance to have a look at him. But just to get Nathan back involved is good. It shows there is competition in that position. We have Aaron Hickey too, who is coming off the back of a really long and difficult injury. He was close to selection, but not close to playing. Having been out so long, he's making his way back with the under-21s and getting some minutes on the pitch. Aaron needs to have a good pre-season, and hopefully he can be available for the autumn games. It would be good if we could get him back for the qualifiers, but it's also important not to put too much pressure on him to try and rush back. He's been out a long time. When you've had an injury of that nature and it's taken that length of time to come back, sometimes you have to take it really slowly. Hopefully he can be involved in the autumn games, but that will be determined by how he does at his club over the pre-season. Meanwhile, Clark has praised his Scotland assistant John Carver for keeping Lechia Gdansk in the top flight in Poland and getting shortlisted for the Manager of the Year award in the process. He expressed hope the Englishman, who has been linked with the vacancy at Kilmarnock, will be able to continue with the national side next season. And he said, "John has been brilliant for me and for the national team. He's very loyal to me. He's very enthusiastic about what he does here, but he's done a fabulous job in Gdansk. He's taken them from the bottom of the table to safety with a couple of games to spare, so he deserves to be nominated for Manager of the Year. I hope he gets it. We'll never hear the end of it, but I hope he gets it. It will be nice to catch up with him face to face in a couple of weeks. Then we'll see what his next step is after that. I would hope that he'd be able to continue, but until we find out what his future is and what he's going to do next, I will reserve my judgment." Report by Matthew Lindsay. Evening Times Sport. May 21. Dumbarton sale agreed. Report by Stephen McGowan. Dumbarton administrators have agreed to sell the troubled club to Canadian entrepreneur Mario Lapointe, owner of an electronic manufacturing service provider based in Quebec. Sports fan Lapointe stepped into the breach after ill health forced the collapse of a deal with Oxford-based Gareth Phillips. The relegated Suns were placed in administration and docked 15 points by the SPFL after directors claimed they were left with no option but to call in administrators in November. Fans of the Scottish League One side rallied around, organising a GoFundMe which raised over £122,000 to keep the club ticking over until a buyer could be found. In a statement, joint administrators Quantumo have confirmed agreement on heads of terms with plans to take the relegated Suns out of administration by the second week in June. Hopes of a rescue plan for the Suns suffered a blow in April when Phillips Pendragon Group Limited ended their interest in buying the club due to health issues and forfeited the non-refundable deposit paid. The joint administrators turned to other potential bidders, with Lapointe emerging as an unexpected potential saviour. A statement from Quantuna read, "Following the withdrawal of the proposal from Gareth Phillips due to ill health, the joint administrators of Dumbarton Football Club Limited can confirm that they have now agreed heads of terms on a deal to sell the club to Mario Lapointe. Mario Lapointe is a Canadian entrepreneur and business owner with a passion for sport and in particular football. The administrators will now work with Mario and his advisors to deliver the transaction by the second week in June, allowing everything to be in place for the new season, planning for which is well underway. While the potential new owner has yet to outline his plans for the club, news of a new preferred bidder will come as a relief to supporters who feared for the club's future. Report by Stephen McGowan. Evening Times Sport, May 21. Former Rangers manager Clement in the frame for top job. Report by Martin McMillan. Former Rangers manager Philippe Clement is a contender for the Anderlecht job. The Belgian boss has been without a club since Rangers axed him in February, following a defeat by St Mirren at home, which followed a calamitous loss to Queen's Park at home in the Scottish Cup. However, he is now on a short list of two to replace current Anderlecht coach Besnik Hazi, with the Albanian boss set to leave after this weekend's final league match of the season at Genk. The Brussels club are guaranteed a fourth-place finish. Reports in Belgium have confirmed both Clement and former Barcelona and Bayern Munich star Mark van Bommel have already been interviewed for the role. Clement was initially believed to want to continue his coaching career in Europe, but is interested in the Anderlecht role. However, his past career, where he won the Belgian title both as a player and manager with Anderlecht rivals Club Brugge, could make him a hard sell to their fans. Anderlecht have had 3 different managers already this season, and the former Ibrox boss could be asked to bring some stability to the fallen giants, who have not won the title for 8 years, despite being Belgium's most decorated club. Report by Martin McMillan. Evening Times Sport, May 21. Italian side make concrete bid for Celtic's Aaron Engels. Report by Blair Meikle. Atalanta have made concrete attempts to sign Celtic midfielder Aaron Engels, according to reports in Italy. After a third-place finish in Serie A, I Nerazzurri are looking to tool up for a tilt at the title next season, and therefore are looking at transfer plans ahead of the summer window. Having sold Toon Koopmeiners to Juventus last summer, further key players could be sold this year, with Ederson and Ademola Lookman likely to attract interest. Atalanta are thought to be happy to cash in if they can find adequate squad replacements, and Celtic's record signing Engels is one of the players they are looking at, reports Sport Italia. It is claimed concrete attempts have already been made for the 21-year-old Belgian and Morten Friedrup in Genoa as they attempt to bolster the midfield. Other names on the wanted list include Rayan Cherki, Odilon Kusunu, Joel Ordonez, and Umar Solet. Engels only moved to the Hoops last summer in a record-breaking switch from Bundesliga side Augsburg. A productive first season has brought 10 goals and 13 assists, and the midfielder will be a key in the Scottish Cup final against Aberdeen, where he could land a third trophy from a dream first campaign. The money splashed on him last summer would have been seen as an investment, and hopes Chiefs would hope to make a significant profit if moving him on. Atalanta were interested in Matt O'Reilly as Celtic demanded around £30 million, until Brighton were the ones to eventually cough up. Report by Blair Meikle. Evening Times Sport, May 21. Scotland learn Euro 2028 qualification requirements. Report by Blair Meikle. Scotland will still have to qualify for Euro 2028 despite being one of the host nations, UEFA has confirmed. The tournament, which takes place in 3 years' time, will be jointly hosted by England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales. Ordinarily, host nations are automatically placed into the tournament with no need to qualify, but that happens when there is one or two host nations, so the fact there is 4 complicates matters. The governing body were yet to confirm how this would work, but they have done so today. Each of the 4 teams will take place in the qualifying stages, but there will be 2 places reserved for the best-ranked home nations who don't qualify. Making it to the finals will be the 12 group winners, as well as the 8 best-performing second-place teams, plus the 2 extra home nations. The remaining spots are decided by playoffs between the remaining runners-up and the best-ranked Nations League teams who have not automatically qualified. Report by Blair Meikle. Evening Times Sport, May 21. Steven Gerrard Rangers path clear as rival lands another job. Report by Blair Meikle. Russell Martin is set to be appointed the new manager of Leicester City, possibly paving the way for Steven Gerrard to return to Rangers, it is claimed. The hunt for a new boss was reported to have reached a final shortlist of 2, former manager Gerrard and ex-player Martin. While Gerrard had many backers within the Ibrox hierarchy, the ex-Scotland international was also very much thought to be in the mix. However, the Daily Mail is now reporting the 39-year-old will become the new Foxes boss. It is claimed talks between Leicester and the former Swansea and Southampton manager have been rumbling on this week, and a deal is to be concluded in the coming days, Martin replacing Ruud van Nistelrooy in the hot seat. It would appear then that the path is opening up for Gerrard to sensationally be appointed at Rangers for a second spell. It had been reported the Liverpool and England player was set for talks with Rangers Chiefs over the next couple of days. With Martin set to be ruled out, those discussions could become more straightforward. Bookies have stopped taking bets on a Gerrard Light Blues return, and that followed an announcement that he had pulled out of a charity match in France next week for professional reasons. That chimed with reports Rangers Chiefs were looking to make a decision and an appointment by the end of this week. This latest development is another potential sign Gerrard could be heading back to Glasgow almost 4 years after walking out on the club to take the Aston Villa job. Report by Blair Meikle. Evening Times Sport, May 22. Aberdeen's Mackenzie in Scottish Cup final fitness verdict. Report by Tony Haggerty. Aberdeen boss Jimmy Thelen has revealed that Jack Mackenzie should be fit and available to be named in the Scottish Cup final squad to face Celtic at Hampden on Saturday. Mackenzie suffered a serious facial injury after being struck by part of a chair following his club's away defeat to Dundee United at Tannadice Park on Saturday. A man has appeared in court charged with culpable and reckless conduct following the incident. However, Thelen fully expects Mackenzie to line up alongside his teammates for the end-of-season showpiece after he joined training sessions on Wednesday morning. He reckons that the 25-year-old stopper was fortunate to escape a more serious injury to his eye after the chair bounced off his head and face. The Swede admits that players' safety is always paramount in these situations and said, "Jack is doing well. He was on the pitch training with the team, so he is okay. It was important for him to be involved. He has some restrictions, heading the ball due to his stitches. He was on the pitch with the boys training well and he was good. We are looking forward to weekend." Was he lucky? Yes, it was on his head, so it was good that it didn't hit him in the eye. We are trying to move on from the incident and look forward to the good things, but always the safety of the players in every workplace has to be secure. In general, the passion and support we have had from our supporters all season has been amazing. This was an incident, but if you see how the supporters at home and the travelling support, how much they put their lives into the football club, it's incredible. Incidents should not happen, but they happen in all areas of life. It was our time to be involved in one, but in general, if you see the whole, it's an incredible support. Meanwhile, Thelen has revealed that he's going to use Crystal Palace's stunning FA Cup triumph over Manchester City at Wembley last weekend as the blueprint to inspire the Reds to their first Scottish Cup success in 35 years. Said Thelen, "It's not every year you are in a Scottish Cup final. I think the last one was 7 years ago. What we have tried to say is that it's an achievement to arrive in the final, but once you are there, the winner takes all. We have a shared strong belief we can do it, and that is the mindset you had to have. Look at other cup finals in Europe this year. A lot of things have happened." When asked if Crystal Palace winning the FA Cup last weekend showed that anything can happen, Thelen replied, "Yes, because a final is always a final. If you go into the game in the right way, the things you try to do are working, then the possibility is always there. Will I speak to the players about this? We speak about a lot of things. We have our strategies. The thing for me is you can feel everyone is aligned and they have belief and hunger. The belief has to be there. You have to dream big and give everything you have to catch this dream. I see the spirit in the players. The belief is there, and we'll give everything we have. This is the final game left this season, so we have to try and enjoy the moment. It's been 7 years since Aberdeen were last in the Scottish Cup final. You don't know when the next time will happen, so you have to be brave and throw everything you have on the pitch. We can do it, so we're going to give everything we have. You can feel when a group of players have this or not, and this group has it. They really want to catch this moment because they know what it could mean. Report by Tony Haggerty. Evening Times Sport, May 22. Brendan Rodgers in Celtic Injuries Update. Report by Blair Meikle. Rio Hatate remains the only Celtic injury absentee for Saturday's Scottish Cup final. The Hoops face Aberdeen at Hampden less than 2 weeks after thumping them 5-1 in the league. Hatate was injured that day in a needless tackle that infuriated manager Brendan Rodgers, and the Northern Irishman confirmed later that week he would miss the last league game and the cup final. The Japanese will be the only one that suffers the heartache of missing the National Stadium showpiece as Celtic go for a treble. Key defenders Cameron Carter-Vickers and Alistair Johnson, who missed games recently, are fit and available. Rodgers told Celtic TV, "Everyone else apart from Hatate is fit. With not long to go now for preparation, hopefully it can stay that way. It has been a really, really good season for us in terms of the availability of players. The guys have done great in terms of the coaching team, in terms of the sessions. The players themselves have looked after themselves so well. Our medical and sports science team have prepared the players off the pitch really well. So that has allowed us to not have so many muscular injuries. It's been purely based around some knocks and fractures and whatever else, but in the main, everyone is fit and strong and ready." Report by Blair Meikle. Evening Times Sport, May 22. Gerrard can get Rangers closer as Celtic no world beaters. Report by Blair Meikle. Steven Gerrard is capable of bridging the gap to Celtic, who are no world beaters. That is the opinion of Danny Murphy, a pal and former Liverpool teammate of the possible new Rangers manager. Gerrard is being hotly tipped for a return to the Ibrox hot seat almost 4 years after leaving them, and it was even claimed yesterday he has Stephen Davis and Jordan Henderson lined up as assistants. However, sources close to the club are claiming no decision has yet been made, with others still in the frame. One of those was Russell Martin, but it is believed he is close to getting the Leicester City job. But David Ancelotti could still be a contender for Rangers. Murphy reckons that if Gerrard does return, he will be able to do what he did last time and bring the Premiership trophy back to the club. He insists that while Celtic are a good team, they are not uncatchable. Speaking on TalkSport, he said, "If Stevie is given a decent budget and is able to bring some players in, they will be competitive. Celtic are not brilliant, are they? They are a good side. It is not insurmountable to get to as good as their level with a few good buys. They are a decent side. They are no world beaters. There is a gap, and he's going to have to try to bridge that, but he's done it before. For Rangers, it is an easy option to appoint Stevie, or maybe obvious is a better word. You would say, when was the last time we had success? Who brought it for us? Who was able to knock Celtic off their perch? It was Stevie, wasn't it? There is no guarantee for Rangers, because whoever they appoint, they have to do some really cute business in the transfer market. By all accounts, the squad is inept compared to Celtic's. You can see the table, and from the points gap, what Rangers need from a player perspective. Report by Blair Meikle. Evening Times Sport, May 22. Golf. Russell looks to go one better at Scottish Women's Amateur. Report by Nick Rodger. Golf was covered a bit differently 122 years ago. In 1903, the inaugural Scottish Women's Amateur Championship took place over the Old Course, and the Glasgow Herald reported on the final in such blow-by-blow detail there were just about divots in the actual newsprint. It was the live blog of its time, long before quotes-driven articles became par for the course. The thwacks, clatters, dinks, and dunts on the links performed the talking. There was plenty to write home about too. A nip and tussle between Alexa Glover and Molly Graham went the full distance, as did the Herald's golf writer of the day, before Glover won it on the final green. Even a bonneted, bearded St Andrews icon was impressed. Old Tom Morris was thanked for presiding at the tee, stated the report, as it moved on from the intricacies of the match play cut and thrust to the pleasantries of the prize-giving ceremony. In reply, he said that he was glad to see so many ladies taking an interest in the game, and that they deserved great credit for the way they had played. From that initial staging many moons ago, the National Women's Championship continues to break new ground. This weekend in Ayrshire, it will be staged at Western Gales, one of the few remaining clubs to retain a male-only membership. For the first time, that will be staged there. Chosen in part for the outstanding quality of the course, we are sure this venue will help us elevate the profile of top-level competitions for women in golf, said a statement from Scottish Golf when the governing body unveiled its 2025 venues last year. So far, there is no sign of any mouth-frothing politicians demanding Western Gales be removed from the amateur rota until it changes its membership structure. With a shimmering roll of honour featuring celebrated names such as Helen Holm, Jessie Valentine, Belle Robertson and Katrina Matthew, the Scottish Women's Amateur Championship remains the domestic showpiece, even though its date in the calendar can sometimes make it a struggle to attract all the leading lights. Curtis Cup star Hannah Darling, for instance, is still in the United States, having been part of the University of South Carolina team at the all-important NCAA Championships. Organisers of the Scottish Championship did not have to worry about clashes with American college golf back in 1903. One player who is back from the United States is local hopeful Freya Russell. Fresh from her first year at Florida State University, the Troon teenager returns with the bit between her teeth, having lost in the final of the Scottish Championship 12 months ago at Nairn Dunbar. A significant event being held on her own doorstep has its perks, of course. And she says, of home comforts, I get to sleep in my own bed, although I'm not saying I won't still be rushing about in the morning getting ready. Russell's 5-3 loss in last year's 18-hole final was at the hands of Curtis Cup Lorna McClymont, who has since made the leap into the paid ranks and now plies her trade on the ladies' European tour. Reflected Russell, it was disappointing at the time to lose to Lorna, but she was so strong last year. Looking back, I can still be proud of how I played. There was a lot I could learn from watching Lorna play, and I think that a year on, I'm a better golfer. The move across the Atlantic has been an education too. And she says, the last year has been good, because I've learned lots, not only about my game but also about myself as I moved from home to America for college, said the 19-year-old. At first the move away was a bit overwhelming, but I believe that I've developed as a golfer. It's good to get back to my roots, so to speak, for the summer, and to play in some home events. Florida may be the Sunshine State, but that big fiery orb in the sky has certainly had his hat on over Scotland for a while. The greenkeepers will be pleased to see some rain in the forecast this weekend. Whatever the conditions though, golf remains a different ball game on this side of the pond. And Russell said, I have had to adapt a bit. Over there is more of a tendency to go for a higher ball flight. But I've been playing at Troon to get accustomed to links golf again. Russell is raring to go, says Nick Roger. Evening Times Sport, May 22. Hearts swoop on Rangers for new academy coach. Report by Blair Meikle. Hearts have appointed Laurie Ellis as the new head of academy coaching, landing him from Rangers. The former Raith Rovers defender will work closely with academy director Andy Webster in his new role at Riccarton. Ellis has been at Rangers for 3 years, working as lead coach of both their under-15s and under-16s sides. The boyhood Jambo will now make the move to the capital after being identified as the man to help develop the academy staff. A former centre-half, the 45-year-old has previously held first-team coaching roles at Raith Rovers and Dundee United, even stepping in as a caretaker at both, and had a short stint as Queen's Park boss. But having honed his skills as a development coach at Ibrox, he will bring that expertise to Hearts, where there is an emphasis being placed on bringing young academy talent through to the first team. Technical development manager Shelley Kerr is at the forefront of that, and Ellis will work closely with her, as well as Webster. As well as being in the building to help develop the club's coaches, he will also work with young players as another figure who can help them realise their potential. Report by Blair Meikle. Evening Times Sport, May 22. Scott McTominay nominated for prestigious Serie A award. Report by Josh McCafferty. Scotland midfielder Scott McTominay has been nominated for Serie A's Midfielder of the Year award. The 28-year-old has enjoyed a standout first season at Napoli, scoring 12 and assisting 4 across 35 appearances in all competitions. His performances have seen him named on the 3-man shortlist for the prestigious accolade, alongside AC Milan's Tijani Reinders and Nicola Barella of Inter. Barella won the award in the 2021 and 22-23 campaigns. Previous holders include Hakan Çalhanoğlu, Marcelo Brozovic and Sergei Milinkovic-Savic. McTominay could get his hands on the Scudetto this weekend. Napoli just have to match Inter's result on Friday evening to secure the Serie A title. His team hosts Cagliari while the Milan outfit travel to face Como. Both games kick off at 7:45 p.m. as the fate of the league is decided. Speaking earlier this month, Dutch football great Ruud Krol outlined how Manchester United selling McTominay last season was a mistake and said, "McTominay got 10 goals for United last season. When you have got a midfielder who scores between 8 and 10 goals for you a season, you do not allow that player to leave your club. You just don't do it." But for some reason their Dutch coach let him go, and what is more, let him go for a very cheap fee of under €30 million. His side was very fallible in midfield and at the back this season, and he ended up losing his job and getting sacked because of that. As I say, I thought it was a very strange decision to let Scott go for such a paltry amount. Report by Josh McCafferty. Evening Times Sport, May 23. Celtic midfielder reacts to speculation over his future. Report by Matthew Lindsay. Aaron Engels has promised he will not allow speculation about his future to affect him in the Scottish Gas Scottish Cup final, after reports claimed that Atalanta are set to make Celtic an offer for him this summer. Engels, who was signed from Augsburg in Germany for a club record £11 million fee back in August, revealed that he was unaware of any interest from the Italian outfit as he looked ahead for the meeting with Aberdeen at Hampden tomorrow. The Belgian international stressed that he was only focused on helping Brendan Rodgers' team to complete a domestic treble this weekend, and then improving as a player with them in the 25-26 campaign. Asked if he was aware of the link with Atalanta, the midfielder said, "I didn't read it, so it's the first time that I heard about it. There will always be something to write or to talk about. If you have a good season and hopefully win a lot of things, then there will always be clubs and will always be speculation around a lot of players. I think I am not the only one here that will have speculation in the summer. I'm just focused here now on the next game, and it's a really big one, and then in the summer I only want to get better." There is always a lot of things to get better on, and also as a team we still lost some games, and we don't want to lose any games next year. I think there will be a lot of work in the summer that we need to do. We need to get better so that we can hopefully have a better season next year. It's a big thing to go into Europe and to do really well there, and hopefully we can compete for all the trophies again like we did this year. We will see where we end. The 21-year-old, who has already helped Celtic to win the Premier Sports Cup and the William Hill Premiership, admitted that one of the reasons that he moved to Parkhead this season was to learn what it takes to win trophies. He stressed he has enjoyed the experience of lifting silverware during the past 9 months and confessed that he is keen to add more medals to his collection in the coming seasons. And he continued, "It would be amazing to do the treble, to accomplish that. It was of course a big thing to come here and to win trophies. To be able to hopefully win 3 trophies in the end would be an amazing feeling. It would be a perfect season for me to start here. I didn't really win a lot of things before, and that's why I came here. I wanted to experience that and to see how it is to win things or to compete for the trophies and to get that feeling. If you go somewhere else or you don't know how it is to win, here you have everything to do that." Report by Matthew Lindsay. Evening Times Sport, May 23. Jeffrey describes his Ibrox experience as a dream. Report by Martin McMillan. A Rangers player has described his debut season as a dream. Jefty, a left-back signed from Fluminense last summer, was expected to serve as backup but ended up playing the majority of games due to Ridvan Yilmaz's recurring injuries. Despite some defensive flaws, the 21-year-old's talent has been recognised, even linking him with a potential move to Chelsea. However, Jefty has expressed his contentment with his experience at Ibrox, and he admits to enjoying his time at the club, even though he has yet to win any silverware. He told Globo in his homeland, "My entire journey since I arrived has always been with the aim of trying to learn more and understand my position better. Reaching the end of the season and seeing that it worked is gratifying. I managed to become a different player, a better player, who learned more and understood more." Jefty also expressed his satisfaction with his development as a player and his experiences in international competitions and continued, "This start to the year at Rangers has been wonderful, very special, even though our goal was to reach the finals and win titles, which unfortunately did not happen. What I am experiencing is a dream. It is something I never imagined I'd experience so soon. Despite being only 21, I played in a European competition against big clubs. I'm very happy and fulfilled with what has happened here." Meanwhile, there is likely to be an exit for Nedum Bajrami from Rangers. Signed last summer for £3.5 million from relegated Serie A side Sassuolo, the attacking midfielder was seen as a smart pickup, as a technically efficient player, especially after his wonderful goal for Albania at Euro 2024. But it has been an underwhelming season for the 26-year-old, who has flattered to deceive, flitting in and out of games as well as the Rangers starting 11. That has led to some criticism from supporters, and it looks to be a signing which has not worked out, and it looks like there could be an opportunity for the Ibrox club to cut their losses and for the player to secure a fresh start, according to reports in Albania. Panorama Sport reports Bajamari has two options on the table, one from a club back in Italy's top flight and one from the Bundesliga in Germany. The report claims his departure from Rangers is likely, although that would depend on a suitable offer being submitted. Bajrami made 45 appearances last summer, finding the net 5 times and providing 4 assists. He signed a 4-year deal last summer, meaning he is under contract until 2028. Report by Blair Meikle. Evening Times Sport, May 23. Golfing as they did in Edwardian times. Report by Christy Dorsey. Believed to be the only pure hickory golf course in Europe, the greens and collars at Kingarock in Fife are hand-cut, with fairways and tees mowed using 1920s style trailed gangs. No fertilizers or artificial irrigation are used anywhere on the course, which provides a more natural, less manicured, and therefore more authentic feel. Originally created by and for the Sharp family, today the 9-hole course and surrounding estate is owned by the National Trust for Scotland. Visitors are issued with 5 original 1900s hickory clubs, a spoon, a driving iron, a mid-mashie, a mashie niblick, and a putter, then guided through the ways of Edwardian golf. It is open from March through to the end of October and welcomed more than 1,000 golfers last season. Manager Dave Allen says numerous tour professionals have played the course over the years, but no one has ever broken the course par of 34. The Hill of Tarvik estate, where the course is located, was purchased in 1906 by Frederick Sharp, an industrialist and investment banker from Dundee. The family made their money in the Dundee jute industry. Frederick and his wife Beatrice had a son, Hugh, and a daughter, Elizabeth. Both Frederick and Hugh were avid golfers and senior members of the R&A in St Andrews, so the estate purchase was also convenient for golfing there. After World War I, when Hugh was down in London learning to become an investment banker, he resided beside a golf course and came back to the family home with the idea of building their own course in the grounds of Hill of Tarvik. The course was completed and opened by the mid-1920s. It was private, but workers were allowed to play. Elizabeth was the last member of the family to die in 1948 of cancer at the age of 38. Before her death, she pledged the whole estate to the National Trust for Scotland to maintain as it does today. Unfortunately, the golf course had vanished in World War II due to the ground being used for agriculture and stayed lost for almost 50 years. It was reinstated when a St Andrews resident and R&A member, David Anderson, visited and noticed the course contours still visible. He inquired with the staff at the time to learn the history. He approached the trust and got an agreement to reinstate the course, which eventually reopened in 2008. It had to be reconfigured for safety reasons and was redesigned by Peter McAvoy, the Walker Cup captain, to the layout in use today. David subsequently retired in 2014, and the National Trust has taken full responsibility for the facility since that date. When the course was reopened, it was decided to retain it as a hickory course from the 1920s, with no modern equipment allowed. It's believed this is now the only pure hickory golf course left in Europe. The award-winning course is professionally maintained, with nothing artificial used. The fairways are cut with old-fashioned mowers, and wildflowers bloom in the rough, as they would have in the 1920s. It is shorter than a modern course, with a par of 34, which incidentally has never been broken since the course reopened. All the clubs which are supplied by the owners for use on the course are from the period when hickory shafted clubs were popular. They are genuine antiques from 1880s through to the 1920s, and the tees used are small wooden tees patented in 1925. The only allowance is the balls, which are modern soft feel balls, as old balls are too valuable to play with. Interest in hickory golf has increased in recent years, both on the continent and in the United States, with about 70% of business coming from the United States. Most states in America now hold their own hickory championships each year. It is not more difficult to play than modern golf, but the technique is different. It allows appreciation of how good people like Bobby Jones were using the Hickory equipment. Modern golf is power, hitting the ball as hard, fast and as far as you can. Hickory is more timing and finesse. It also sounds totally different when playing. Report by Christy Dorsey. Evening Times Sport, May 23. Celtic's Maeda left out of Japan international squad. Report by Mark Walker. Celtic hero Daizen Maeda will be able to take a well-earned break after tomorrow's Scottish Cup final, as Japan boss Hajime Moriyasu revealed he has rested him for their World Cup qualifiers. Japan were the first team to clinch their qualification for the finals next year in USA, Canada and Mexico, and they still have 2 more dead rubber games to come in their group, away to Australia and at home to Indonesia. But Maeda and the injured Celtic teammate Rio Hatate won't have to make their exhausting trip halfway around the world, after the manager opted to leave out some of his most established stars to look at other domestic-based players. He explained, "Some of the regular players who are always in the squads have been left out for these games. Considering that some of the main players have played a lot of games before and suffered frequent injuries throughout the season, we decided not to call them up this time. The guys who have played a lot of football deserve a rest." Maeda is set to play his 56th game of the season for club and country on Saturday when he starts in the Scottish Cup final against Aberdeen. He has scored 34 goals. Report by Mark Walker. Evening Times Sport, May 23. Luca Ross on Miller inspiration. Report by Graham McGarry. It is inevitable that a young player coming through the ranks at any club will be compared to the ones who have gone before. At Motherwell, for example, just as David Turnbull drew comparisons with James McFadden, Lennon Miller was then compared to Turnbull, and so on. Miller is the latest to set a benchmark against which all other youth players will likely be judged. But for Luca Ross, that is a challenge to be relished, desperate as he is to be the next up-and-coming academy product to make his mark on the Fir Park Motherwell first team. In his quest to make a name for himself, Ross threw himself into a loan spell at Annan Athletic, making 31 appearances and scoring 3 goals in League One. Sadly for the Galabankies, they would eventually lose out to East Fife in the League Two playoffs and drop down a division. But on a personal level, Ross feels the experience has stood him in good stead to plot an upwards trajectory into Michael Wimmer's plans. And rather than be cowed by the task of living up to the standards set by Miller, he is inspired by his friend, who has shown his former teammates in the Motherwell youth ranks just what is possible if they apply themselves. Ross said, "I've always believed there has been a pathway into the first team since I've been at Motherwell. Coming up, you see the players that have come through, and especially playing alongside Lennon in the younger age groups, it shows what can be done. It is obviously great to see that there's boys my age, and boys that I've seen a couple of years older, and they've gone on to do well at the club. It's definitely nice knowing that there's a pathway for young footballers. I hope that's the case for me, but it's all down to myself, really. Having turned out for the first team at Motherwell already, and having even scored a last-gasp equaliser against Ross County, it would have been easy for Ross to look down his nose at the thought of taking a step back to League One. But he approached it from a different point of view, and he said, "It was great. My mindset was never one of just being happy to maybe be involved in the squad at Motherwell. There's not much use to that. I'd done that for the last season, so I needed to make sure I got games, because it would be a lot better if I can be on that pitch a lot more than just be involved in the squad." It was a different learning experience than just sitting on the bench at Motherwell, and I was really hoping to get on well. It's a real men's game in League One. It's different to the 18s. It's a lot more physical, faster, and it was good for me to get prepared for this season coming at Motherwell. The number of games I got at Annan, that's going to help me. I would still train at Motherwell. I can definitely see myself doing better in training because of these experiences, and hopefully that carries on to the next season, where I'm a real competitor to go and play. That experience of training under Wimmer has been an eye-opener for Ross, and just as valuable as the competitive game time he has tucked under his belt during his loan spell. He feels that his attributes, his pressing ability, and his creativity on the ball dovetail nicely with what the German wants to see from his team, and he says there is a sense of excitement and anticipation among the squad about what they can achieve once Wimmer has had a full pre-season to implement his ideas. He said, "He's been great to me, making sure I give maximum effort and making sure that I do well in the training. He's saying that he likes me, so when I come back after the summer, I just have to make sure I'm in his plans. There is definitely excitement, and I think that his demands suit me. The energy I bring as a forward player, that's my style. So it's exciting to try and be in his plans. You can see all the stuff he's implemented in training coming through, and it's definitely one of my strengths, bringing the energy. I am looking to take a man on, throw my balls in the box, try to be creative when I get the chance when I'm on the ball, and cause problems for the opposition. So hopefully I can do enough to catch his eye." It was reassuring then for Ross to be handed a 2-year contract extension last month, but he is keenly aware that this is not a license to rest on his laurels, and he continued, "It definitely gave me a lot of confidence, but I can never be certain of myself that I'm going to be in the manager's plans. I need to prove to him why I should be in his plans. It's not like I just down tools or whatever, now I have a contract. I need to make sure I do my best so that I'm in his plans. I'll be coming back after the summer and working as hard as I can to do just that." Report by Graham McGarry. Evening Times Sport, May 23. Rangers and Glasgow City ready for Ladies Scottish Cup Final. Report by Martin McMillan. Rangers face Glasgow City in the Scottish Gas Women's Scottish Cup Final at Hampden Park on Sunday. Last weekend, the Sky Sports Cup holders were defeated 1-0 by Hibs at Ibrox, which ended their quest for the treble and handed the SWPL title to Leith for the first time in 18 years. Adding to their disappointment, their final opponents at Hampden Park, Glasgow City, secured a 2-0 win over Hearts to claim second place and a European spot. Joe Potter, the Rangers manager, is determined to end the season on a high note with a cup double, and she said, "We cannot make up for what happened in the league. We do not shy away from that, but we've got to put a few things right. We have got to make sure that we are proud of our performances. We have not been proud of a lot of performances that we've put on throughout this season, and it has not been good enough ultimately. But we've got another game. We've got a chance to put it right, and when there's a trophy on the line, you've got to do all you can." Yes, there was a big trophy on the line on Sunday, but we did not manage to turn up and get that one over the line. But we've got another chance this week. We've got to make sure that we're doing everything we can, because it's the last one of the season. Glasgow City manager Leanne Ross is delighted that the final is being held at Hampden Park for the third consecutive season. City are record cup holders with 9 wins, but none of them have been at the National Stadium. Ross, a former Glasgow City midfielder, said, "The Scottish Cup in itself is a special competition, especially to the Scottish players and staff. It is something that we've grown up with, and the fact that we're now able to play at the National Stadium as well just adds that little bit more excitement and would make it even more special to lift it there. I think the spectators are in for a really competitive game. All the games this season have been really tight. Both teams play good football, so we're going to go there, and it's down to who performs best on the day. The games have been really tight between us this season. We have played 2 games at Ibrox, won 1-0 and drew 1-1. But I think in terms of Glasgow City, we are really happy with how we have performed in those games. The most pleasing thing for us is that we're up there challenging, and we're going to make it a difficult game for Rangers on Sunday." Report by Martin Macmillan.
From the Glasgow Times, Saturday the 24th of May 2025, from the sports section. Magic Mitov the hero as Aberdeen beat Celtic to Scottish Cup. Article written by Graham McGarry. Dimitar Mitov was the hero as Aberdeen pulled off an almighty shock to defeat Celtic on penalties at Hampden to win the Scottish Cup for the first time since 1990. For 83 minutes, this was arguably one of the most forgettable finals in many a long year. There was no lack of effort, but there was a severe lack of quality, goal-mouth action and drama. Nevertheless, Celtic looked to be seeing the game out and rather cruising towards a treble thanks to Alfred Dorrington's first half own goal, but a howler from Kasper Schmeichel 7 minutes from time brought Aberdeen level and finally let the blue touch paper on this final. Now we had drama alright. The game swung from end to end, before Celtic seized control once more in extra time. They couldn't find the winner though, as Aberdeen stood firm, and on to penalties it went. Celtic captain Callum McGregor missed the first spot kick, Mitov diving low to his right to save. Eventually, Alistair Johnston had to score to make Aberdeen hit a final penalty, but he too couldn't find a way past the brilliant Bulgarian, who sent the Red Army into raptures with another stunning stop. Here are the talking points from Hampden. Jimmy Thelon's game plan pays off. Given that Aberdeen hadn't beaten Celtic in the previous 30 meetings going into this one, and had shipped 6 goals to their opponents in the last time they met at Hampden, as well as conceding 5 to them just 10 years ago at Pittodrie, you can hardly blame Thelon for going in the defensive. The Aberdeen manager said he had learnt from those humblings against Celtic, and that he had formulated an alternative plan for this one to help stem the tide. As it transpired, that meant a deep-lying 5-3-2 formation instead of his usual 4-2-3-1, and it did indeed allow them to frustrate Celtic for large parts of the first half. The trouble was that for all they gained in a defensive sense, they lost any sort of ability to progress up the pitch, and it seemed a matter of time before a lapse in concentration would allow Celtic to make the breakthrough. When it arrived as we edged towards the interval, it was rather fitting that it was scrappy, in the extreme given the context of what had gone before. The champions had started to pile up the corners, and eventually something had to give. Aaron Ingle swung the ball in, and the unfortunate Dorrington, who had been Aberdeen's best player to that point, saw the ball cannon off his shoulder and on off the far post. But fair play to the Dons and to Thelen. They hung in there waiting for their one chance, or miraculously the one mistake that would give them a lifeline. And what a mistake it was when it arrived. Tale of two keepers as Schmeichel bungles. The Dane had been just about faultless for Celtic this season, though he has attracted some controversial criticism from his homeland for his performances for his national side. But he picked the worst possible time to throw in a horrendous wreck to give Aberdeen an unlikely leveller. With the clock ticking towards time up, Aberdeen advanced up the right, and in fairness to substitute Shayden Morris, he hit with a teasing delivery into the 6-yard box. A goalkeeper of Schmeichel's experience and quality should have dealt with it though, but instead, he succeeded only in flapping it behind him and into the net, sparking drop jaws in the Celtic end and scenes of absolute mayhem behind his goal, with a sea of red spilling onto the track and the pitch in their delirium. Mitov, by contrast, would soon earn his place in Pittodrie folklore. More than just penalty saves from Magic Mitov. The focus will understandably be on the spot kick stops from Mitov in the years to come, but what cannot be underestimated either was his contribution right at the end of stoppage time after the 90 minutes. As a Paulo Bernardo tackle in midfield broke for Daisuke Maeda, and the Japanese striker bore in on goal, the Aberdeen fans' hearts must have sank. Time seemed to stand still, but as Maeda pulled the trigger, Mitov was upon him, and he managed to smother his effort to take the game to extra time. He would go on to have the final say too, of course, and no one deserved it more than him. Harsh and Callum McGregor, but Celtic skipper well bounced back. When the toss was won by Celtic, and McGregor picked the end where his fans were located to host the shootout, there was never any doubt that he would be stepping up to hit the first penalty. The only surprise was that he didn't score it. McGregor has had so much success in a Celtic jersey, and particularly here at Hampden, but he was visibly in bits at the end of this one. No doubt, given his previous history, it will only fuel the fire to come back next season and do it all over again. Rodgers was contesting his 15th match at Hampden as Celtic manager, and prior to this he had won the lot, showing the size of the task that Aberdeen had in their hands and the scale of the subsequent achievement. Rodgers was also bidding to become the first Celtic manager to win 3 trebles, but it would be Aberdeen who would win their first Scottish Cup for 35 years, and it was a victory built on a solid game plan from Thelen, discipline, heart, courage and composure. And that report was written by Graham McGarry and read by Ian McKenna. From the Glasgow Times, Monday the 26th of May 2025, from the sports section. Rangers women ensure Scottish Cup sunshine after a storm. Article written by Alison McConnell. The Glasgow weather might well have been this season a microcosm for both Glasgow City and Rangers today. There have been storms and clouds in amongst the sunshine, with Rangers ending their season basking in the latter. Their Scottish Cup win at Hampden could not have been more comfortable, nor the performance more in sharp contrast to the meek ending to their league campaign. This was a win at a canter. Rangers' tears from last weekend were used as the catalyst to get their hands on the final trophy of the season. It enables Jo Potter to claim both cups on offer, and she was keen to underline that she has won 4 trophies out of 6 across her 2 years, but there will still be a lingering sense that the title remains elusive. Mia McCauley got Rangers up and running in the opening half, before Kirsty Howitt scored either side of the interval. To rub salt in the wound, City finished the game with 10 players on the pitch, with defender Samantha Van Diemen dismissed after VAR intervened to upgrade a yellow card to a red with 10 minutes of the game remaining. Leanne Ross watched her side claim second spot last weekend, and with it take the second Champions League place. Again though, the league failure was always going to linger. That failure is compounded now with yesterday's defeat, which confines City to back-to-back seasons without a trophy. For a club who have dominated the landscape of Scottish football for so long, there is no question that it will sting across the next few months. As will the manner of this performance, They were conspicuous by their absence against Rangers, with no stage of the game offering a suggestion that they were capable of gaining any kind of momentum. By the time that Macaulay had put Rangers in front, Potter's side had twice hit the woodwork. It was a warning that City had failed to heed, with Macaulay sclaffing an effort off the outside of the post in the opening stages before Cathy Hill had whacked a header off the bar. Macaulay's opener came as Van Diemen, arguably one of her poorest games of the season, brought the ball out of defence, but her pass was cut out. Macaulay eluded a challenge from Claire Walsh before speeding a right-footed diagonal effort low into the bottom corner. Ger's skipper Nicola Docherty was forced off shortly after the opener, injured in the opening minutes after a collision with Amy Muir. As both players slid in and Docherty appeared to take a knee to the face, the fullback was forced off, clearly upset at the manner in which her afternoon was prematurely ended. It had no impact on Rangers' dominance. City hit the crossbar through Natalia Vrobel before Rangers added a second. Katie Wilkinson was the architect, whipping a ball into the feet of Kirsty Howard. She brought it down, sent Van Diemen the wrong way with a slight feint before turning and driving a low effort beyond Gibson. It could have been game over for the Petershill side. Gibson was forced into a stop after Macaulay was allowed to break through 1-on-1, with the stopper spitting herself to deny the teenager. City tried to force their way into the game before the break, but their pressure came to nothing as Rangers headed up into the interval in firm command of the game. The second period was still in its infancy as Rangers put it to bed. Chelsea Cornet broke through City's backline and squared the ball across the 6-yard box, with Howitt sliding in to beat Gibson. City appealed for offside, but television images showed that Cornet was well on as she ghosted in behind. City's lack of composure when they did get into decent areas undermined any hope they had of hauling themselves back into the game. Nicole Kozlova ought to have burst the net when she was picked out inside the box and, with the goal gaping, she inexplicably hit her effort wide of the target. From there on, Rangers headed to the other side of the park and flirted with a fourth. Gibson had to deny Macaulay as the Ibrox side kept at it. For all that Rangers were well on top, Potter remained on edge as she patrolled her technical area, constantly barking instructions. Van Diemen's dismissal caused confusion inside the stadium. VAR is not in use across the women's game, with a long delay to check Van Diemen's foul. Rangers could have had more. Jane Ross, on for her final appearance as she now heads into retirement, unselfishly squared for Rio Hardy, who blazed wildly wide when she should have buried it. Rangers could afford to be slack by then. There remain questions to be asked over the summer, but one suspects their break will offer more relaxation than City's. And the article was written by Alison McConnell and read by Ian McKenna. That concludes this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Q and Review and to tell your friends about our service